So hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Christian Hernandez. I'm an intern here at America250PA. And today I am honored to have with us Mr. Pedro Rivera. He's the former Pennsylvania Secretary of Education and the current president of Thaddeus Stevens College of Technology. Mr. Rivera, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you for joining us today.
Such a pleasure to be here, Christian. Thanks for inviting me.
Of course, thank you. So Mr. Rivera, why don't we start with a background about yourself? Like, tell us something about who is Mr. Pedro Rivera, what's his background, what part of PA is he from?
Sure. So I was born and raised in Philadelphia. My grandmother moved to Philadelphia, moved here to Pennsylvania with my mother and my aunt when they were very young. She actually moved here. She was a seamstress. She sewed zippers onto denim for 5 cents a zipper. And you know, she always used to tell you that she was like, she graduated from the 4th grade in Puerto Rico. So she moved here in search of a better life. She moved here to improve opportunities for herself and for her families. And I'm really proud to share, you know, through that work. I'm a first generation college student. And as great as you know, we get to kind of celebrate that, probably my proudest fact is that I'm not the last member of my family to graduate from college. Actually, after I finished my master's degree, both my mother and my aunt, they went back to school and completed their 2-year degrees and moved on to get, you know, good gainful employment in the medical industry. And so, you know, when I think about our trajectory, moving to Philadelphia, my grandmother coming here for a better life, and on my mother's side, who raised me, my mother and aunt, but even my paternal grandmother moved from Puerto Rico to New York and was a housekeeper. She cleaned houses, you know, trying to improve her station in life. And so us being able to celebrate this opportunity and to celebrate education and, you know, where we're from is such an important opportunity. And now being in Lancaster and serving in this institution, it just always feels like, you know, always trying to do right. By my family members who moved here, you know, to the U.S. mainland for a better life.
Oh, so you know, so you mentioned that your mother worked at she was a housekeeper. You mentioned, right?
My grandmother,
Oh, your grandmother
my father's grandmother was a housekeeper, and my grandmother was a seamstress. My mother was a secretary at a doctor's office, and you know, through just working in a family doctor office, went to get her 2-year degree and now is a pathologist assistant. And she, you know, is able to take the skills she learned working in the office and, you know, and just advance opportunities for herself in life.
Oh, that's good. Is there any advice he has given you that you find that's very valuable for you?
Yeah, you know, when growing up, my mother worked 3 jobs. You know, we often tell the story that when I was in high school, I had a full-time job and I went to high school, and she had 2 full-time jobs and a part-time job. And so pretty much for the most, you know, years in high school, we never saw each other. And so really the values that she instilled in me was to work hard. I mean, to work hard, to be as responsible as you know you can be at the time, and you know, always to look forward. I mean, I'm very fortunate that I have a mother who always, you know, still to this day we talk almost every day, but always instilled the value of family, the value of being yourself, and the value of hard work.
So you know, it seems that you know you come from a very hardworking family, and I'm sure that also other Hispanic families are very hardworking as well. So I want to ask you, you know, our community is very hardworking, very driven, very enthusiastic. So the fact that we have a month that celebrates our culture as well, it's very important, right? So I want to ask you, what does Hispanic Heritage Month mean to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think first and foremost, I see Hispanic Heritage Month as an opportunity to share and to celebrate our culture. You know, it's an opportunity to share the many places we come from and how proud we are of our past. I mean, just in a few minutes, we've gotten to know each other. My family coming to Puerto Rico, me having family there, you know, you and your family coming from the Dominican Republic, and as many, you know, likenesses there are of that, there's also nuanced differences, right? And so to have this opportunity for us to celebrate where we're coming from, but also what our contributions are to our country, in all things, not just food and music, which is nice, but to take the moment to celebrate our contributions to science, our contributions to education, our contribution to politics, our contribution to making this society, our communities, our country, the place that it is today. And I think it's nice to celebrate, but it's probably even more important for us to take a moment and express, to realize and to communicate all that we bring, as a community, all that we bring, as a culture to the U.S.
So, what as a Pennsylvania resident, what makes you PA proud?
I think, my family moved here with nothing. I mean, moved here with absolutely one suitcase and just in search of a better life. As I shared earlier, my grandmother was a seamstress. She sewed zippers, onto denim for a nickel a zipper. And I can't imagine how much her hands must have hurt trying to, sew onto denim. And, though there are definite struggles, and adversity, the opportunity to grow and kind of develop as a family and individuals in our state has had a generational impact for ourselves, for my family, but also other families. And as I have had the opportunity to experience what it's like to be a Latino in Pennsylvania, both in Philadelphia and in Lancaster, these are two communities that absolutely embrace our Latino-ness, in the sense that absolutely, allowed us to not have to integrate in a way that leaves our background behind, but to integrate in a way that enriches those around us. And if I'm here and I want to engage in, in food, music, and in academic dialogue, around, culturally around Latino and Spanish and what it's like, I can do that. And if I want to do so in other communities, there are opportunities to do that as well. And I think that's probably what makes me most proud of being a Pennsylvanian.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So now let's do this quick exercise, right? I'm going to ask you the same question, but I'm going to have you answer that question in Spanish. Should we try that?
Let's give it a try.
All right. So I'm going to ask it in Spanish too. So let's give it a try. Okay. So, ¿qué lo hace a usted ser orgulloso de ser miembro o parte de la comunidad de Pensilvania o del estado de Pensilvania?
Mi familia, mi abuela se mudó aquí sin nada, en busca de una vida más mejor. Y mi abuela era costera sembrando cremalleras en las Mesillas por Cinto por muchos años. Y aunque hubo luchas y adversidades definidas, la oportunidad de aprender y crecer en nuestro estado ha tenido un impacto generacional para mi familia y otras también en la comunidad. Por eso tengo un orgullo mucho de ser de Pennsylvania.
Perfect. That was excellent. There you go. It was.
I'm nervous sometimes.
Oh, I can imagine. But yeah, I think that was a great answer. So, I mean, I see you emphasize a lot the hardworking aspect. I mean, I feel like I see that you emphasize that a lot. And can we also agree that it's also like that's also a big aspect of part of being Hispanic, right? Of part of our community, that we're very hardworking people. And
absolutely, when you think about it, when we, as we've grown up, and I'm sure as with others, but I can speak, about our community, whether it's our families or our extended families or our community members. The response to everything was work through it, right? If you were sick, work through it. If you were depressed, work through it. If you were stressed out, work through it. It really was the answer to anything, and it was really difficult, right? When you grow up here generationally, and as technology evolves and communities evolve, when you have a parent who worked 3 jobs, or you had a grandparent who cleaned houses, or sewed zippers. When we deal with some of the adversities we deal with today, it's almost embarrassing sometimes for us to complain about it, knowing what they've done and what they've gone through to provide this better life. And so when someone who's generationally has set this path for you, and they say, you know what, I get it, I love you, work through it, you work through it. And and as a father myself now, and I see the many challenges my own kids face, and I'm not as sometimes as hard as my grandmother was on me, but there, within that message is, I love you, I support you, you got to work through it, and we figure it out. And I think that is just how we've developed as a community, as a culture, and it really is just showing respect and honoring where we've come from.
I think like a big part of our community too is our parents constantly reminding us of, yes, it's hard, but it's not as hard as how we had to go through. Like, it's funny because my grandparents reminded my mom of that, and then my mom reminds me of that. So, like my mom went to a public school in the Dominican Republic. So she told me like, what you're facing is nothing compared to what I did. You know what I mean? So they're always, I think it's part of our community too. They're always constantly reminding us. I feel like other communities as well, but like the Hispanic community too, like they're always reminding us of, yes, you're dealing with a lot, but like nothing compared to what we have to do. You know what I mean? Like my aunt usually tells me, well, I had to walk miles to get to school, and then you're complaining because you had to walk like 2 miles to go to your school. Like,
so funny. Well, it's funny, Christian. You're going to be doing the same thing when if you have children one day. It's like they say we walk 2 miles and both ways uphill, right? And you're like, wait a minute, that's not possible. But then and then with my son, I took public transportation. I lived in Philadelphia, and I said I walked 6 blocks, to get to the bus to go to school. You only have to walk to the corner. And he's probably going to say the same thing. Probably he's going to say to his kids, I had to walk to the corner, and you're getting driven from from in front of the house. So I guess generationally, we those things tend to stick with us, right?
Yes. So when we come to the United States, we have a hard time adapting to this new community. I mean, our families have gone through a lot, and there's a lot of reasons why we come to this country, right? There's multiple reasons why people come to this country. But there's a lot of, what I love about the United States, there's a lot of diversity in this country, but at the same time, some people feel that they don't feel a sense of belonging into our community. And part of it might be to the language barrier. I mean, I know a lot of Hispanic kids that come from foreign. I mean, again, our community, as Hispanic community, we all speak Spanish, right? So we come from nations that speak Spanish, and maybe our English is not the best, right? And then that's that, and then other aspects of what we have when we come here, right? Of the struggles and the adversities we face. So, you have seen, we have seen that you have become a very successful person. I mean, you were the secretary of the Pennsylvania Secretary of Education. Now you are the president of Thaddeus Stevens College. So you are an example of someone who is Hispanic, right, Latino, and has, created his own path to success, right? So my question to you is, what advice would you give to Hispanic students who do not feel the sense of belonging to your community?
That's a great question, Christian. And I think back and I think about a time, and it's an important issue to bring up. I mean, I've shared with my kids, I share with my my students, I share with my members of my community, young members. I mean, I grew up at a time when my grandmother forbid us to speak Spanish. I mean, we were not allowed to speak Spanish. And, because she had this fear of us being targeted for our accents, she didn't want for us to be singled out for any reason. And all she wanted was for us to work hard and integrate into the social norms at the time, right? And I think about that, right? So I think like today's social norms are so different than the social norms, that I grew up in and that had to be developed. I might even say like they like evolved, right? And one of my wishes is that we could embrace early on to accept and to appreciate and to love who our grandparents were and understand all they sacrificed for all of us to have a better life. I mean, I do speak Spanish and conversational with my family, but to do it publicly, as I share it, I get embarrassed, especially like when I would leave here and I go to Puerto Rico and they would say, and they'd make fun of my English accent, there. And so it kind of made me a little shy. And part of sometimes I said, man, I wish I was allowed to do this earlier, because I learned to understand it perfectly, to read it, to write it. And I know all the words, but I never was, not until much later in life allowed to actually, speak it, but kind of, celebrate it and share it out loud. And which is why I always enjoyed doing it as an educator with my students and within my community. And so I get it, right? That sense of belonging. And I also share that we have, it's important for Latinos, especially younger Latinos today, to understand that they're not alone. And it's so crazy, because what we even know about our own cultures is that that we as Latinos, we're not monolithic, right? We have to embrace ourselves in so many different ways. We have to embrace ourselves as a Latino. We have to embrace ourselves as being an immigrant or a migrant. We have to embrace ourselves as being a first or second or third generation here. We have to embrace ourselves in liking salsa or reggaeton or rock or liking food or not liking, but because we're just such a complex people. And so I think the first step in doing that is unapologetically seeking out and engaging with those who value and respect you as a person. And you can't be comfortable in the space that you are in, and being who you are, and realizing that being a Latino encompasses all of that. It's hard to find that sense of belonging. And one of the first things I tell folks at the collegiate level, the first thing I tell individuals who are ready to graduate, and when they ask me how was I as lucky, blessed as I've been to have the opportunities that I've had. It took me a long time to understand this, but I think I always start off with telling folks who you are is good enough. Don't try to be somebody else, right? Be you. Embrace that. Surround yourself with others who appreciate that. And in our society, culturally, we're a lot of different things. And first we have to be comfortable and proud of who we are, and then only surround ourselves with folks that appreciate that and respect that and love that about us.
See, I think that's just a great advice, because I mean, even for myself, sometimes I have a hard time trying to tell myself at the end of the day, right? Because I'm the King's College student government president. And at the end of the day, even though you have accomplished all these things, at the end of the day, you are still Latino, you're still Hispanic. Don't be afraid of showing that to people, right? Don't be afraid. I mean, yes, yeah, there's a different culture here. And I always say, I am proud of being Dominican. I am proud of being a member of my country, right? I'm proud of where I'm coming from. But it's hard because there's different cultures, and you feel like you're going to be left behind, and people are going to look at you weird if you show your culture to people. You feel like you're going to lose opportunities if you show people who you are. But I feel like nowadays, I think it was just a great advice. I think we need to embrace who we are. I think we need to show to people that we are a strong community, and that we have a precious culture that we should share with them, right? Mm-hmm. And, it's funny, because once you share your culture with people, they just get amazed by it and they get fascinated by it. So at the end of the day, it's not as bad as we think it is. It's not as bad as people are going to left us behind if we, if we embrace our culture. People are going to, like, the belief is that they're going to leave us behind. And at the end of the day, it's not. They're going to embrace our culture the same way, the same way we do. And I feel like it was great advice, because even for myself too, I have a hard time admitting that. I mean, it's hard to keep your culture in this new culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, and I'm much older, right? And I've had a lot more experience, and I still suffer that. So almost every day I got to remind myself, that, and which is why I always to make it a point to remind others, of that as well. So
And I'm assuming too with your role, like, have you ever walked into a room where you're probably the only Hispanic there?
yeah, often. I mean, I joke and I say I'm proud, like being the first, right? And in a lot of my jobs, I've been the first, I've been the youngest, I've been the only, right? And that's like really cool for like a minute, right? And then you realize like, man, that's lonely. That went from cool to lonely really, really quick. And so, but one of the things that I do share with folks, like what I'm proudest of, that although almost all my jobs, I was many times the first or the youngest, but I was never the last, because part of our role as leaders is to develop the next generation leader, right? And sometimes it's taking someone who doesn't know anything about what we're doing and just building a foundation and then giving them opportunities. And that's for all members, of all communities. But, for us, and you're going to have this opportunity, through Kings and me being in student government and just everything else that you're doing through even America 250, to realize that you're going to be the only person in the room representing a whole lot of people. And part of that job is setting the stage and setting the conditions for someone else to step up and build off of your shoulders, right? Not have to start all the way from the bottom and kind of make it to that point.
Yeah. And, hopefully in the future, we get to see more of our Latino students, and Latino students and Latinos in general, like just getting more involved.
Yeah.
And hopefully we get to see a room where there's not only one Hispanic, but at least two and three. And we
Yeah.
we can have more of our Latino community more involved.
Mm-hmm.
So just my final question for you is, how can America 250PA include the voice of Hispanic Americans as we prepare for the celebration of the 250th anniversary of the United States?
Yeah. So I think part of it is even going back to our last conversation, right? Remember that we're not monolithic. We have to, seeking out various voices from different communities that represent different interests, and that allows us, to be much more inclusive. Also, when you think about this, our experiences, even what we spoke about today, not only shape who we are as a community, but it really is a modern day representation of how our country was built, right? I mean, this country was built on the shoulders of those who migrated and immigrated here in search of a better life. The history of our country, right? And as we're celebrating 250 years today, as we discussed the Latino experience, that is this country's history, right? And so when you consider the fact that we're so rich in culture and background and interest. And at the same time, we are Americans' modern day representation of what the history, of this country was and how it was built. And so by relating to those experiences, not only can we celebrate where we've come from, but we can build upon that to be an even better and inclusive and understanding and accepting society moving forward. And I think that's the power of celebrating, American history. That's the power of integrating the voice of Latinos and other cultural and racial groups, to better understand and celebrate, but also to advance opportunities for all Americans.
Well, Mr. Rivera, thank you so much for taking your time to share with us and spend a couple minutes with us. We really appreciate you taking your time. And we really appreciate you doing this interview with us. For the folks out there who are watching this interview, this is a person who has accomplished a lot, and this is someone who is very inspiring, someone who has worked really hard and has accomplished great things, and he's working for the better of, has worked for the better of our community, of the education in Pennsylvania, and also is working hard for the students at Thaddeus Stevens College of Technology. Mr. Rivera, thank you so much again. So please make sure you follow us on our Instagram and our Facebook and our Twitter, and at America250PA. You make sure you visit our website as well. And just reminder to join us and become a part of history. Thank you so much, and we will see you soon.